Because of the way the universe is created, we each of us live in two worlds at the same time. We have to live in the outer life of our own bodies and the inner life of our own souls.
Hello and welcome to Living the Inner Life. I'm your host, Chris Sheridan, and I want you to join with me on a discovery process of looking into our inner lives, our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, our experiences, everything that we have that helps us interpret the world around us and help influence and inform the way we respond to people and relationships and just about everything we do in the world, both inside and outside, because we do live these two lives and they are very much connected. It's a two-way street. It moves inward, it moves outward, but the most power, the most control, the most success we can have is with shaping and informing our inner lives, the way we feel about things, our concept of who we are, of how the world works. This has a huge impact on the experience that we have in our interactions in the outer world. Okay? Now, last night I was watching the State of the Union address by the president. I'm from the United States, in case you're from another country. I don't want to assume that it's obvious. And the president was going through some things that had happened this last year and the state of affairs, the economy, and whatnot. But I didn't really get a sense of unity. I still felt a lot of division. So this State of the Union was very questionable. Not the state, but the idea of union, of unity, didn't seem to be very present. And that is actually the union in this context is used as another name for the country. And in our Constitution, it begins, "We the people of the United States of America, in order to form a more perfect union." Okay, that's the first sentence, in order to form a more perfect union. Okay, well, this sounds like so that we may be producing and creating this union. Okay, so it sounds very important, okay, this union of things. And the United States is kind of maybe not entirely unique, but it has its own sense of who and what we are, or at least the vision of that was laid out by the Founding Fathers. And believe me, I'm getting somewhere. This will have some relevancy with your life. And no, it's not a topic about politics, although that's something we can get to at some point. But I'm talking about the more basic, the fundamental first principle of what unity consciousness is. So in our form of government, we have the federal level, which is everything, the United States, that's the union. And the union of what? Of the states. And according to the ideals laid out by the founders, that the states have control, they have authority over their own autonomy, as long as it fits within the umbrella of the federal government. So there's only so much the federal can do. Everything else is really up to the states and even further on local divisions on how we want to conduct our lives, because not everybody is the same. Now, there may be some things we can all agree on, and that is this concept of unity or union. Now, what is government and what is a country but a collective of individuals? The government is a collection of individual government officers, and the population is a collective of individual people, of individuals. And if we're not feeling cohesion or unity in our communities, in our states, or in our country, or with our government, it probably means that we are not unified within ourselves. Okay, so I want to discuss the state of your union, of my union. How are we unified? How can we establish this more perfect union within ourselves? Because it's my belief, and this is one of the major premises of living the inner life, is that if we want change to occur out there, we have to make it happen in here. If we want more unity in our communities, in our government, then we have to have a more unified individual sense of who we are. Now, that can be hard to do because there are so many elements, so many aspects to the individual person. Each one of us is like, all the states and all the communities in this union in which we live. There are different ways of thinking. There are different ways of believing. We can have mixed feelings about something. Okay? We could say 2 or 3 people could like the same thing, but like it for completely different reasons. Could even disagree on why it's important to like this thing, even though ostensibly they all like it. Okay, there's so many opinions, so many facets, so many ways of looking at things that we have so many different versions of, yes, the truth. And what is the truth, but what is true to us? So to be true to yourself, you have to have this unity consciousness. You have to become one. That's what holistic means. It's not just about medicine or health. It's being whole as a being. Mind, body, and soul. The head and the heart are in congruency. Our thoughts and our feelings are working together. Okay, our inner life and our outside experience are connected and unified. Now, with all these different aspects to ourselves, this one-size-fits-all version of unity probably isn't going to happen. But the important thing is that we are unified within ourselves, that we try individually to come up with this composite being that we are and have that unified. Even if there's differences and nuances and facets and all different aspects going on, some seemingly contradictory, we can still maintain a sense of cohesion, a sense of unity in our total being. Now, this is important because, if we take an example of, say, an automobile, we want unity. There's a bunch of parts. There's a wheel, there's some brakes, there's windshield wipers, there's all these different parts, and you can go to a parts store and buy the thousands of different parts that make up a car. And if you throw them in a box together, they're not going to make a car, okay? They are a bunch of parts. The parts have to be fitted together. They have to be working together. They have to be synchronized. They have to fit together. They have to function together to have this automobile. Okay, and that's pretty much true of anything and everything. Our bodies are composed of so many different, just the physical body, so many different elements. We've got our insides with our inner works and our bloodstream moving things around. We have digestion. We have our nervous system. We have our sensory input. We have, of course, our thinking capacity. We have our feeling component. And we have all these other mysterious things that we love talking about here on Living the Inner Life, like intuition and imagination and dreams and consciousness. Okay, and they can sometimes, a lot of times, not work together in the best way that they could. Okay, when we become divided within, there's that saying, a house divided unto itself will fall. Okay, and if we look at our bodies and our being, more than just the body part, but including our soul and our consciousness, our living capacity, if that's divided, and the more that it's divided, the more we're going to fall, and probably the more we're going to fail, because it's hard to sustain that. It's hard to keep up all these differing parts, if they're arguing. It's like kids in a family, it's hard to keep everybody together if everyone is trying to voice their different opinions, or like the Congress. So what we want to do is bring these together, and this is what's termed integrity. Okay, I'll probably talk a lot about that. Integrity, simply put, is you mean what you say, you say what you mean, you know better and you do better. This gap between thinking and doing, knowing better and doing better. You live by your convictions. You follow through with them. Your conduct matches your convictions. So what you say is equal to what you do. There's no discrepancy there. That's integrity. That's continuity. Okay, and that's union. That is a unified thing. A lot of us say one thing and do another thing, not because we're deliberately trying to deceive somebody else or even ourselves. There are so many other components going on. We may want to do something. We may say that we feel this way, and then we might act in an opposing way and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. And then you try to deny that or justify it or explain it away or ignore it altogether. And we can set up this incongruous, this divided nature within ourselves. All right, so what do we do about it? How can we, starting with our inner lives, how can we become more integrated? Okay, now Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, talked a lot about the shadow. As a matter of fact, he really popularized and introduced, at least to the mainstream, this notion of a shadow self. Now, it's an ancient concept. It goes way back in mythology, and we hear about this. Usually a villain in a myth story is nothing more than the shadow element of the hero, this dark side, this part that we ignore. Okay, the shadow doesn't always have to be bad. We can hide good things too. As a matter of fact, unfortunately, a lot of us do that. We hide some of our best parts in this shadow. But the shadow generally are those parts within ourselves that we either don't like or don't want to look at. We somehow don't accept them. We haven't integrated them. Okay, they've actually broken off. I took many shaman workshops, and one of the most important rituals was called Soul Retrieval. And it's based on the idea that throughout our lives, if we have some kind of traumatic experience, which we all do many times, if you live long enough, you're probably going to have a whole bunch. And especially when we're younger, when this traumatic event happens, and again, the trauma can be perceived. It's not necessarily bad, like, you're in a war-torn country or something. It could just be a small matter, but it feels big, it feels bad, it feels traumatic. And every time that happens, a piece of our soul is broken off, okay? Like a mosaic or a puzzle. It gets separated because it can't live, because it got wounded and has to go somewhere and hide and retreat. It's still there. It's just off to the side a little bit, or probably just back there where you can't see it. Okay? And the methodology for this soul retrieval is to find those pieces through our wounds, because at each wounding is when a piece of ourselves gets broken off. And we have to go back and heal the wound. And by healing the wound, that piece is reintegrated. And it actually kind of happens at the same time. By bringing this piece in and reintegrating it, we are being healed. Okay? Healed, whole, one. Holistic means one. So this oneness, we need to become one with ourselves. Okay? And that's Zen. Zen as this notion of being one, that there is this oneness with a capital O to the universe, not just ourselves or our country or our planet, but that there is this entire and infinite oneness. We are all connected. There is one creation. Now, there may be an infinite number of divided little parts or facets that we can look at, but this notion of something being completely separate, like wholly separate, that can exist without the other. It's a philosophical standpoint. It is a way of looking at things. But a lot of, like, Taoism is another one with the yin and yang, this integration of opposites. That's a goal for many, especially Eastern spiritual traditions, is that we become one, no matter how many different parts you can divide things up. Essentially, underneath it all, there is oneness. Even on the planet, this planet, Earth, where we live, we say, well, there are 7 seas, and we have the Pacific Ocean, and the Atlantic Ocean, the Indian Sea, and all this stuff. All the bodies of water are connected. Okay, the continents are kind of like islands in this big ocean world in which we inhabit. Okay, so there's one sea, and it rises up and down twice a day with the tides. Okay? It's divided in parts by location, by region, and we can name this part this and name that part that. But essentially, it is in itself unified. It is one. There is this oneness. So to get ourselves back to one, because we probably started out that way, maybe we came into this world being whole, and then life gives us all these opportunities to become divided. And worst of all, divided within ourselves. We can second guess ourselves. We can deny parts of who we are. Now, a lot of times it is the not so good parts, the parts we don't want to admit, that we don't want to accept. Okay, so we banish them to the shadow. But it's time to bring them back, because we need all the parts. We need all those elements in our shadow self. Okay, they need to be brought out into the light. And when they do, they don't have that much power. Okay, because we can confront them if we need to. We can heal them. We can invite them back into us. Okay, short example would be if, say, as a child, you were very expressive and just danced and sang, uninhibited, unfiltered, and little bit by little bit, you got, okay, not now, we're at dinner. You know, all these proper things that we have to learn as we grow and mature. But after so many times, how many times have I told you, stop that? I'm trying to think over here. We get these signals, some of them very direct, that say, hush, squash, don't speak up, don't express yourself freely. Okay, so if this childlike freedom of expression gets squashed, especially early on, beyond what's necessary just to maintain order in a classroom or not be disruptive when other people are talking. Okay, that's kind of a normal curbing your expressiveness. But if it's overly curbed, overly squashed, or at least if it feels that way, because that's what's important anyway, we can then censor ourselves, shut ourselves down, not speak up, and then that becomes a way of living. It becomes a way that we respond to things. Oh yeah, this is great. Well, geez, I kind of but I better not say anything. We don't consciously think that, but we've become trained. It's become a habit. It's become not only a distraction or an avoidance, it's really, in some ways, it's a survival mechanism, okay? Because at that early time when we were told to shut up, it was, oh, gosh, even though I really want to be expressive, it's probably better if I just shut up now. That's better, that's the solution. So then you're telling yourself, don't be expressive, don't speak up. Okay, and if that continues on, it will actually work a terrible disservice in your life if you're not allowing yourself to speak up. Because sometimes we do need to speak up for ourselves, speak up for another person. Okay, so we have to go back and find that part of ourselves that got cut off. And maybe as a child, yes, shutting up was the best thing you could do to avoid whatever harm or criticism that was coming your way. Okay, and it stays there. It stays at that age. We need to bring it to this age. Okay, we're an adult now. Okay, I know this part of me was told as a child to shut up, but I'm not a child anymore. Okay, I can bring this in. And as an adult, I can know how to reasonably filter and regulate how much and when I can be expressive, because there's appropriate and inappropriate times. But this blanket, I'm just going to shut up, I'm not going to say anything, better to be seen and not heard, that's too extreme the other way. Okay, so to bring it in, invite it back in. I know you were told to shut up when you were young. I know that part of me was told to shut up when I was young, but I'm not young anymore. And I need to be expressive. I need to be expressive and voice my opinions and my feelings, whether it's at work or in a relationship, or with your own children, because you don't want them to have the same frustration that maybe you've experienced or we've experienced with being censored from the outside. Then it becomes self-censorship. A lot of these wounds that we have, a lot of these, I guess what people call self-sabotage, they're really survival techniques. We're really trying to preserve ourselves. Okay, but it may be harming us even more now. So we have to go in, we have to dig in and find these things. I was working with a participant at one of the shaman workshops, and we did the Soul Retrieval thing. And what I found with her, I got this image, this whole meditative, almost in a trance kind of thing. And I got this image of a jack-in-the-box, the little box you wind up and thing pops out. And when I came out of the ceremony, I was telling her, I said, look, this may sound silly, and it probably won't be useful to you. I have no idea. But what I got for you was a jack-in-the-box. Does that make any... And then right away, she just, oh my God, that's it. That's been my whole life. And it was this huge awakening, just this psychic image, I guess, I pulled out of a jack-in-the-box, however that happens. I'm not saying I'm clairvoyant, but however it worked, I found this image while my eyes were closed and I was meditating, and it was the right thing she needed. I didn't need to know what it meant, but she did. And she goes, that's me. I've been stuffed down my whole life. That's how I've lived my whole life, and I can't do that anymore. And then I just suggested, well, keep winding. Keep winding that jack-in-the-box, because eventually, pop goes the weasel. It comes out. All right. And this woman was, in middle age. So that had wreaked a terrible havoc on her life. And she was then at a place where she could let that go. She could open up. I don't need to be stuffed in the box anymore, she said. And I think it was freeing. She started crying, and it seemed like there was this big release because she reintegrated that part of herself that had been broken off, brought back into union. Okay? So we are composite creatures. We have all these different facets. Some of them seem to go against each other. You've heard people say, oh, so-and-so is a walking contradiction. Okay, and maybe we are, but we have to accept all those parts too, even the contradictory parts. All right, so how's the state of your union? Find a way to bring these parts back. Invite them. Tell them it's safe now. Okay? It's okay now. I'm not going to respond like I did when I was much younger. I'm an adult now. We can do this. Okay? That other person isn't there to shut us down. And I no longer want to carry that voice that was given to me a long time ago. And I release the chains and bonds that have been put on these parts of myself. I'm providing a welcoming place for them to come back in because they belong to me. They're all parts of me and they're all welcome. Each one has their proper place. Okay, you have to be the adult. You have to be the grown-up and be nurturing and providing, but don't be indulgent and let these things run rampant. Okay, bring them in, become whole, become one with yourself. Just tell yourself that I am one, I am whole, I am complete. Most of the things I believe that we're looking for out there or in another person, we already have or have had and still do. It's just that they're not connected. They got disconnected. They got broken off. And we need to invite them back in so we can become whole again. The more whole we are as individuals, the more unified our families, our communities, our country, maybe even our government will be. Okay, so invite it in, and thank you for inviting me in to this part of your day to listen to this podcast, and we'll see you again next time here on Living the Inner Life.